Hi, I'm Mark Clayton. I'm going to give a quick demonstration on using Autodesk Revit as a parametric modeler. This doesn't require you to know anything about Revit. You have to load Revit on your computer and then start up Revit, and you should get a screen sort of like this. Now, Revit has several modeling tools in it. One of them is the project modeler, which is for creating a building. And a building is basically an assembly of many parts. So you create the parts in the family editor. So I'm going to, so that we can demonstrate and play with the parts, we need to create a project file. So I'm going to go to New here and create a project file, and it's going to be named Project 3, and I don't really have to do anything with it right now. For this parametric demonstration, I'm going to create a handrail to represent the handrail in Langford Architecture Building A of the Texas A&M campus. This is a great big, thick, precast concrete shape. And I'm going to create it by going to New Family. And you'll see that families are used for creating all sorts of objects in Revit. So all sorts of the components or pieces of a building. But I'm going to pick the generic model family here and create that. And I have this Family 8 is my generic model. Now we'll see that this is a reference plane. We're looking at a plan view, a floor plan view, but I want to go to the right view and look at it from the side so that I can draw the cross section of this object. Now the kind of peculiar thing about creating parametric objects in Revit is that the parametric objects are controlled by reference planes. So I need to draw the reference planes that define this object. So that's the top edge. This is the thick kind of handrail. This is the web of the sort of T shape, and it has a gap in it, and then a ledge at the bottom. And then this one represents the width, and this is the width of the web. So I've got this sort of armature or rigging of the shape. So now I'm going to control this rigging in some ways. I know some things about this object. One, this is the width, but the width is symmetrical about this reference plane in the middle. So if I draw a dimension line for the width and a dimension line that includes a running dimension line that includes that center line, I can click on equal, and it's controlled to be equal. Similarly, the web has a width, and it's symmetrical, so I'll create a running dimension line and make it equal. Now this bottom edge, this sort of ledge down here, is one height, and that's another height, and I can have all these dimensions to allow me to control the height of it. So if I click on this, I can click on that, and I can change the height. But I want to change it parametrically, not just simply edit it in the family editor here. So I'm going to go and click on this one, and I'm going to make that the width. And it's an instance. You'll notice it's a type of parameter length by automatically. So I've got this width, and if I move this edge along, you'll see that that width changes and it stays symmetrical. I can set this one to be the width of the web, and this one will be the height of the ledge, and this is the H for height of the gap, and this is the H of the web. It's important that you make each of these an instance, and you'll see how that works in the future, but I'm not going to focus on that today. This one is the height of the rail. Okay, so now I have this object controlled, and I can go in here and I can change these values, and it should move around without giving me any problems or any faults. So let's try it. Everything seems to work okay. Let's make the width 4 feet. It should get wider and stay symmetrical. It does. Make the web 8 inches. And apply that, and it stays symmetrical too. So I've got all my rigging done, and it's all controlled by these parameters in the Family Types dialog box. I'm ready to draw the extrusion. So I'll get the extrusion tool out, and then I will take my line, and I make sure I have a chain turned on. A chain is like a polyline or continuous line. And I will draw that T-shape around like that. Now notice I did not draw on the reference planes. You can draw on the reference planes, but I find it a little bit easier to do it the way I'm doing it now. And I drew the ledge or curve down here. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take this Align tool, and I'm going to click on the reference plane and click on the line and lock them together. So this means that if I move the reference plane, then that edge of the extrusion will move too. So I lock all these together. And I do the curve down here too. And they're all locked together. So I'll finish my extrusion, and I get it like that. It's got I move these reference planes around, it changes the shape. Now there's one more thing I want to do, is I want to go back to my reference level, look at it in plan view, and I want to be able to stretch it to whatever length I need it to be. So I'm going to create 2 new reference planes in the plan view, and one for the right edge. One for the left edge, one for the right edge. And I will lock the extrusion to those like that. And I'll put on some dimension lines like we did before, so I can make these into parameters. So then I click on the dimension, and I call this one, how about left? Make it an instance. And I'll call this one right. Make it an instance. And I should have a good handrail, so I'm going to save it. Call it Langford Railing Section Demo. And I'm going to load it into my project file. So I load it, and it appears with all those handles on it. And if I click on it, I can drag the handles and change the shape. And I can look at that in 3D. If I go to this default 3D, it will create a 3D view for me. I can come down here and turn it on to shaded, so it looks a little more realistic. And I see that looks like the right shape. I can spin it around. I'm going to put my center here, and then I can orbit around that point, and you know, it looks like the Langford handrail. Now, if I click on this, I also have all these dimensions here, these parameters here, and I can change them and change the shape that way also. So I can get very precise size. So that's the simplest kind of parametric object with handles and stretch handles values. So you've got a whole lot of control. If I place another one, I can make it different. That's what the difference is between an instance and a type. That these are two instances, and they have different dimensions.